welcome to Conexão Bett, the videocast produced by Bett Brazil, organizer of the largest show in Latin America dedicated to innovation and technology for education. This is one of the many dialogue spaces created by Bett Brazil to connect you to the educational community, bringing relevant debates about the future of education. If this is your first time here on the channel, please subscribe and turn on notifications to follow the episode of Conexão Bett. Today, we are very excited to welcome Michaela Horvathova, co-founder and chief education officer of Beyond Education. We are going to talk about education at the AI age and the skills needed in this new reality. Welcome, Michaela.
Hi, Valeria. Very nice to be here.
Great. So, to start, in an article of yours published on the blog gopenai.com, you mentioned that after dedicating your career to taking education beyond its traditional structures, you found a common idea among educators about the ChatGPT, socio-emotional skills. Can you tell us a little bit more about this enlightenment process, please?
Sure, Valeria. Happy to elaborate a little bit more. So, as we all know, education got sidetracked for decades, focusing on one-size-fits-all education and basically mass-producing routine knowledge, while the world is moving on and it's changing. The way people live, interact, learn, and work is very different than it used to be several decades ago, while education is still the same. And so while I was at Harvard more than 10 years ago, I was studying what are the different trends that are impacting our society and how they are changing it, such as, for example, globalization, migration, aging population, climate change, and especially technological advancement and progress. And based on that, we have done research with other Harvard researchers as to what should students learn and what should they focus on and what really matters. And we had came up with this framework, which is called four-dimensional educational framework, that is pointing out on knowledge, skills, character, and meta-learning. That is the key to basically students to thrive in the 21st century. And this was an ongoing debate for many years, that education needs to change and needs to basically widen the focus, not just from the academic outcomes, but also to these non-academic outcomes, or what we also call social-emotional skills. However, the change is slow in general, and especially in education systems, there is a lot of inertia. So there wasn't really a lot of change on the ground happening. There was a lot of debates and discussions, and people agreed, but there wasn't really change. And I can notice that now, with the release of generative AI and ChatGPT, for example, the urgency is felt more, because people see in practice and in reality what is the impact of these models and of this technology on real life, and why do we need to change, and why do we need to focus on other than just knowledge and academic outcomes, which is, as I mentioned in my article, also social emotional skills.
And in your opinion, what have been the impacts of AI on education?
So there are many. To start with, I think that already education systems as such are under immense pressure. According to PISA 2022, the OECD countries are dropping in performance across all dimensions. Then we also have a massive teacher shortage in the world globally. There's 44 million teachers missing. And AI, it's just, I think, emphasizing the pressures on the education systems that are being felt across the world. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the main impact of AI on the education system is this emphasis and urgency that we need to really focus on what matters and what is relevant, and we need to move away from just focusing on data, information, and knowledge, but really widening the scope of education and teaching students and developing students' competencies so that they can know how to behave and engage in the world, how to apply what they know, how to adapt and learn. all of the skills that make humans human and that differentiates us from AI, while most of the education systems continuously teach and develop things that AI can now do as well, if not better.
You have already mentioned that we still don't have the answers to the questions posed by AI, especially with regards to current educational system. For example, how can we emphasize what makes us human, and how do we differentiate ourselves from machines, or how to prepare the students for this ever-changing world? So what is needed to answer these questions, and what are the paths to follow? It's a big question, I know, but
yeah. I think we already have many answers. I think the problem is in implementation of the answers, but I can first talk about the answers. And so I think one of the answer is really reducing the amount of content and knowledge and information that students need to learn in the current education systems, and really reducing the amount of academic knowledge and focusing more on transfer and expertise of the knowledge. Meaning that students don't just memorize and rote learn what they are told to learn, but they are taught to reflect, to question, to express the opinions, to look at things from different perspectives. And for all of that, what is required is really a deep curriculum reform and curriculum redesign, which would mean that we need to really cut big pieces of the content from the curriculum, and we need to focus more on the deeper knowledge and on the transfer of this knowledge. That's first. We also need to integrate modern disciplines such as, for example, entrepreneurship, global citizenship, financial literacy, digital literacy, coding, STEM, all of those things that oftentimes don't have space for that. And in addition to that, we also need to integrate this other 3 dimension that I was talking about, which is skills, character, and meta learning, which are equally, if not more important these days as knowledge. And in order to do that, we need to, as I mentioned, we need to reduce the amount of content that is currently in the curriculum. And I'm not mentioning that content-based or fact-based or knowledge-based is not important. It's absolutely important, especially
just to balance.
Yeah, when we need to fact check and when we need to basically discern what is right and what is not, we need to have a knowledge base, but it needs to be more focused on key concepts and key ideas and really understanding that than just having a massive amount of information that anyway we forget when we leave the school. And then in addition, we need to balance it indeed with other 3 dimensions, which is skills, how we apply what we know, then character, how we behave and engage in the world, and then meta learning, how we adapt and reflect, which is extremely important. So this would be the first answer, basically, big education reform. The second answer is implementation. And implementation of that in practice is oftentimes very challenging because there is a lot of resistance and pushback against this. And so for that, what we need to do is we need to raise awareness about the importance and urgency of this among different stakeholders, including principals, teachers, parents, so that this change can actually happen on the ground, because many times it can happen sort of on the documents and on the policy level, but oftentimes it doesn't get translated into practice. And so that's why while we are doing sort of this education reform and awareness raising, we also need to educate the people that are actually implementing the reform about the importance and urgency of that. And another part of the solution is using AI where it's needed. For example, as I mentioned, there is a increased shortage of the teachers around the world, and oftentimes teachers are overwhelmed. And so, why not using AI as teaching assistants where it can be beneficial? So this can be also part of the solution in the educational transformation, that we can actually, through and thanks to AI, we can offer personalization and a quality education to students where otherwise we couldn't.
So, Michaela, one of the paths you already suggested is to promote among students critical thinking, individuality, and the exercise of empathy. Is the statement is correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And as I was referring to the framework, in the 4-dimensional educational framework, we have identified what are the 12 key competencies that are needed for students to thrive in the future. And so those are under skills. It's communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. Under character, it's mindfulness, resilience, ethics, leadership, courage. And under meta learning is growth mindset and metacognition. And all of those together as a combination have the ultimate goal to develop wisdom in students, which is extremely important these days, more than ever before. And this, in addition to obviously preparing students for the labor market and for the world of work, what is the goal of education is also developing individuality, developing the character, and teaching them wisdom that can actually help them navigate in this complex, uncertain, ambiguous world that is ever changing. And think that this is something that is stable, that can help them guide them throughout the life. It's something that we call as a compass, internal compass, that can help them do the difficult decisions, have the moral compass, discern what is right and wrong, sort of having a common sense, maturity, humility, balance. So all of the things that are associated with wisdom, which is oftentimes forgotten, I think it's extremely important in this current age of AI.
And why does it matter to measure 21st century competencies?
So there are several reasons, but as I was mentioning, the conversation about the importance of these skills has been ongoing for decades, right? People agree that this is important and we need to do it. However, when it actually really comes on doing it and implementing the programs in the schools, what oftentimes happens is that there isn't enough time and space to do it because it's still sort of quote unquote nice to have. And the reason for that is because what teachers and students and parents pay attention to is what is being measured. And what is being measured is basically science, biology, chemistry, math, literature, which again, I'm not saying they are important, but these are not the only parts of the education that are important. But because these are the only ones that are being measured and graded, this is what everybody is focused on, right? And so if we want to basically change the conversation about the education, if we want to widen the focus of education and also bring the non-academic outcomes that are equally, if not more important, as I mentioned, to the dialogue, we really need to measure them. And because of measuring them, then we can have data-driven decisions and evidence-based discussions about, okay, are they being developed, how they're being developed, what are the interventions and pedagogical approaches we need to have or change in order to develop them further. So, and as saying goes, what gets measured gets treasured. So that's why.
Yeah, and to avoid to limit the student to the evaluation of the ability of memorization, right?
Absolutely.
It's wider than that.
Exactly.
And how did the theme of socio-emotional skills associated with the educational process come to interest you? It's a fascinating name, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and I think it really came a long time ago when I was student myself, and I was very curious student with the inquisitive mindset, and I loved learning, but I didn't love school because I felt like it really was, instead of sort of supporting and developing my curiosity and my creativity, it was killing it. It wasn't really reinforced to have questions, to be curious, to challenge status quo. I think it was the opposite. It was very much focused on rote memorization. And then in parallel, so I was very frustrated as a student, to be honest. And in parallel, I was playing tennis at the semi-professional level, through which I developed competencies that served me today, and like resilience, work ethic, discipline, growth mindset. And it really helped me through different parts of my life until today. And so I realized that what really made a difference in my life wasn't the school I went to, unfortunately, but really was all of the other things that I did outside of the school, which was my family, my experiences, and especially playing sport at the high competitive level. And so then I reflected and thought that it shouldn't be like this. And actually, it's such a shame and waste that 12, more or less 11 or 12 years of mandatory schooling that students go through across the world is not used to develop these important life skills, right? That can really serve them in life. And so then I took it really as my personal mission to work on this and to try through different ways to integrate it in the schooling and in education systems, because I know myself how life-changing they can be. And we also have tons of research that confirms that they can really make a difference in better academic outcomes, labor market outcomes, social outcomes in all areas of life.
And regarding beyond education, did beyond education emerge from this process of yours and complementing?
Yeah.
Does it aim to intervene in the inertia of the education system and propose new learning models?
Exactly, it did. I was working for many years in education policy and research on the international level. So it was trying to basically impact this change more from top down and through sort of international systemic level. I was working on research and education reforms through the OECD and also with different ministries of education. With different also international organizations like UNICEF, International Baccalaureate. So it was always at the sort of high systemic level. And I could see that there is a momentum and there is interest in this topic and alignment and agreement that we really need to do something. And this is absolutely needed. But then after several years of having this discussion, but not really seeing a lot of change, or at least change fast enough on the ground, I decided to co-found with my co-founder Bernardo Beyond Education 3 years ago to try to impact this change bottom up, because I believe that in order for the education transformation that needs to happen, both are necessary, top down and bottom up. And so now it's still the same objective. How can we widen the scope of education? How can we develop these life skills, important skills that are ever more important now in the age of AI in students, but now doing it through the specific tools that can help schools to implement it and execute it. Yeah.
And when you look to Brazil, what is the current work of Beyond Education here?
Sure. So I would just say basically what we do at Beyond Education is assessing those 12 key competencies or life skills through scientifically validated assessment. We have 4 research publications in academic journals that are validating our methods. And so we really know how to measure these hard to measure skills. It's basically many years of research and in-house development that contributed to this work. And so what we do, we are based in France, but we are a global company. We operate in 8 countries. However, Brazil is our main market. I think for different reasons, probably because of the size and scale of Brazil, but moreover, I think it's also because of openness and hunger for innovation and change and for improvement. And so what we currently do in Brazil, we are present in more than 1,500 schools across 200,000 students that already took our assessment. And we have many testimonials of students and teachers and principals that show and they talk about the value of the assessment that actually helps them bring into the light the different programs and interventions they are doing in their school. We are both in public and private schools. We work with some of the public schools through Lemon Foundation and also through Municipality of Rio de Janeiro. Our biggest client is Arco Group, which is Arco Educação. We are just currently publishing a research article on validating our assessment in Portuguese in Journal of Socio-Emotional Learning. So there is a lot of work that we are doing in Brazil. We also have an office in Brazil. We have Brazilian investors. So even though we are a global company, there is a strong focus on Brazil, and we want to continue grow and expand in Brazil. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Michaela, we we are ending this episode, this program, and I would like to thank you very, very much for your presence here, and invited you to come again. Okay, and well, for everybody, just Conexão Bett is available on YouTube and the main audio platforms. Also follow our social networks at Bett Brazil. Thank you very, very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Valeria. It was great talking to you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye all.
Bye-bye.